Hello, welcome to Truth Sentinel with Scott, watching over the truth in the news. Today we're going to be talking about Ukraine, the zombie-like culture we live in. We're going to be touching on freedom of speech, the police state, changing situation in the UK, amongst other issues. As I said in previous episodes, this is more of a hobby. It's going to be fairly unplanned, so just going to talk and whatever comes to mind, I'm going to talk about. I have been looking at the comments in under the videos, and so some of the comments will reflect what I'll be talking about. Fresh news today, and in the last and yesterday as well. Yanukovych is under arrest. I think the last time he was seen was in Balaclava, which is near Simferopol in near Odessa, well, not too far from Odessa. Has anyone seen his palace? Yanukovych looks like quite a nice place to live. That's just where some of the money's been going. I'm sure he's got properties abroad as well, and that's probably where he's trying to head to at the moment. Most people are just waiting to see what the reaction from Russia's going to be. They're obviously not happy. That's clear to see. But would they actually be prepared to move their troops in or involve the Russian military in at least securing the east part of Ukraine, which is predominantly Russian speaking, and a lot of people there are pro-Russian. The Black Sea Fleet is actually moored near Simferopol, and strangely enough, we have US warships not too far away. Supposedly they went there as security for the Winter Olympics. I don't know. Sometimes I think you know, they're just moving these ships into place ready for a war they know is going to happen. But maybe it won't happen. Let's hope not. I've got lots of friends and friends in Ukraine, and also family connections. My closest family connections are actually living in the UK now, so they should be safe. But still got lots of friends and friends of family that live there as well. Other news, Piers Morgan's ratings were not good enough, so his CNN programs are going to be ending, or at least the main ones that have been going on. Alex Jones will be pleased. Actually, I did manage to catch some of Alex Jones yesterday, and he did refer to Piers Morgan quite a lot. Scotland are seeking independence from the UK. Personally, my personal opinion is, if the people of Scotland really want to do this, then that's fine, and they should be encouraged and helped to become independent. There's no problem at all with me. The only people that have problems with these kind of things are politicians and world leaders. The normal citizens of a country usually don't care if you know, they want people to be happy. Death toll is rising in Thailand. Protests over there have turned more violent, with hand grenades being thrown. Clashes in Venezuela. That hasn't been very well reported on the news so much so far. I don't know too much about what's going on over there, but I'm going to do some research if it continues and find out what's happening in Venezuela. In Egypt, the interim government resigns unexpectedly, so problems still continuing in Egypt at the moment. Japan, some Fukushima residents have been allowed to return home. I know that if I had lived there previously, I don't know if I'd be too happy to move within a 20-kilometer radius of those reactors. But then, you know, are these people being told the truth? Probably not. And the Japanese parliament, maybe, if they really do think it's safe to live there, maybe they should relocate the Japanese parliament to to actually sort of within 10 kilometers of the reactors, and then they can continue to encourage people to come and join them there. 300 tons of radioactive water definitely released into the sea, but probably much more than that being released every day. The Pentagon's Chuck Hagel plans to downsize the US military. I'm sure this is because they realise that they can kill people a lot more effectively by using drones rather than actually wasting too much money on feeding and housing the military. First military drone is flying over the UK. Where was the public debate about this? Where was where was all the discussion shows on TV? The questions in the House of Parliament about whether it's okay for military drones to fly over the UK. Not one that I saw or heard of. It's ridiculous, And why? Why have we got a military drone now flying over the UK? It's just the first one. I think it's a test to see whether our zombie-like population are going to react. I don't think they're going to react at all. They could just have them flying over every town and city, and most people could easily be persuaded. In fact, I don't think they even need persuading anymore. They would just wonder what the noise is occasionally, probably. That's one thing I wanted to talk about, was the BBC. I do look at the BBC, and they're very useful to actually find out some broad outline of what's going on in the news. But you can't really take them seriously. I mean, where has all the investigative journalism gone about important things, not about stupid things? For example, they put this article about the first military drone flying over the UK, and underneath, instead of doing an article about should this be allowed, what's happening, are we safe, they put an article underneath saying, what are they and how do they work? It's so dumb, in my opinion. These are not the questions to be asking. What are they and how do they work? You should be asking, what are they? Are they going to kill me? Should they be flying over me? Why are they flying over me? Why do we need these? Why didn't anyone ask our permission? These are the questions we should be asking. Coming up next, I just wanted to start by talking a little bit more about Ukraine. A few articles in the news about Russia's reaction, and just one or two articles starting to crop up saying, could this be a catalyst for war if Russia occupies Ukraine, and then the US will try to put a stop to that. A lot of people are fearful about that. I have friends over in the Ukraine, and they're really worried about what's going to happen next, because the country is very, very unstable. Remember, some of these protesters are still seen as people people overthrowing a legitimate government. Now, really, the government was never legitimate in the first place. The chances that Yanukovych was elected democratically by people voting is extremely unlikely. There would have been lots of corruption, vote rigging going on, so it's laughable to say that this was a democracy. But there's lots of pro-Russians in East Ukraine. It's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do, how they're going to react. I saw on the news the other day that there's lots of sort of small armed militias being formed, sort of ragtag armies with various aims and goals. It's definitely a dangerous time in Ukraine, and it just remains to be seen what's going to happen over the next month or two. Would Russia bring in the troops? I think it depends on. It would need a spark, something to spark it off. Now, of course, these days you don't need something to happen naturally. Governments will just manipulate that and create a false flag event. So if they want if they want war in Ukraine, which is quite possible, and it won't just be war in Ukraine, this will be potentially World War III. If they want it, and I think ultimately they do want World War III, it just depends when they want it and where they want it. So if they want it here, in my opinion, it's going to happen. If they don't want it, then it's going to happen somewhere else anyway. That's a bit of a bleak opinion, I know, but I know some people share that view. I hope it doesn't happen. I don't particularly like war, although I think for society to change sometimes, as you saw in Ukraine, you sometimes do need some kind of uprising and fighting. Okay, let's just have a look at some more news that I noticed. One person wanted me to talk about the high rates of crimes where Muslims emigrate. Well, being Muslim is a religion, so I was wondering whether that person meant people who emigrate from countries where Muslim is the religion. Do crime rates rise? I really don't know about that, so I'm not trying to avoid the issue. I do know from living in England that with immigration comes good and bad things. Different cultures have different values and rules, and so you can see standards rising in one area, such as variety of food, for example, and then you can see standards falling in other areas. And obviously in the UK we also have the problem with the benefit culture that's been exploited by some cultures and has led to a lot of animosity between cultures now. On the whole, I think immigration and multicultural societies are a good idea, but they don't come without their problems. Now also laws are changing in the UK, so that husband and wife terms will be changed to reflect the fact that we now have gay marriages. I know some people will have strong views on that. We could tackle that at a later date. Society is definitely becoming a bit more confusing, but as someone else on the comments board said, I think that rather looking at the differences between ourselves, between cultures, between religions, between sexual orientation, we should try to look for the similarities first. So whether you're happy with gay marriages is not the most important issue. The most important issue is whether you can get along with people that you might not agree with or might not like their way they live. I think people just need to get along. That's the most important thing. That's not always easy, of course. Also in the news, oldest Holocaust survivor dies, 110 years old. I think as these people die from World War One, World War Two, the Holocaust, Hiroshima, as survivors die, we do find that there could be a danger in there is no one else to give first-hand knowledge of what happened, and that does make a difference. When I was in Japan, I visited Hiroshima, and I visited the Hiroshima Museum there in the Peace Park. If you do get the chance, and I know it's not always easy to travel, it's expensive, but if you do get the chance to visit Hiroshima, it's well worth the visit. My opinions about the atomic bomb, nuclear bombs changed visiting that place. I mean, I was against them anyway, but now I'm strongly against them. I met a survivor from the bomb there, and there's something about meeting someone who was there and hearing it firsthand that can change the way you think, and has a much more of an impact than reading in books or watching in documentaries. I was with this woman. She was quite old, but she was young when the bomb was dropped there, and she told me and a small group of people. It was very informal. I kind of stumbled across this. She was in a room and she was just giving a talk that day, and just listening to her talking and still seeing her shaking with fear, even years and years after the bomb was dropped, and hearing her talking about her brother being incinerated, you know, and seeing children with their skin dripping off them, and the terror, and it just made me realize that no matter what happens, these bombs must not be used again. Unfortunately, it's probably likely they will be used again. And if you've seen that video of all the nuclear explosions over the last, I'm not sure how many years, is it 50 years? You can go online and find this link. I think I may have posted it. If not, I'll try to post that in the comments section. But basically, this video shows with little blips all the explosions over the last 50 years or so. And I was thinking each one of those explosions represents a release of nuclear radioactivity into the air. And there's, if you look at the blips, there's a lot of them. And people wonder why the cancer rate's so high. Nobody quite knows the cure for cancer. I think we do know the cure for cancer. It's just nobody's investigating it properly and holding people accountable. I mean, the idea that you could release hundreds and hundreds of nuclear weapons over a 50-year period and it's not going to have any effect seems kind of stupid to me. It's obvious a lot of the cancer rate is coming from situations like that. So people have been doing that, and it may be a coordinated attempt between various countries to pollute the atmosphere with radioactive chemicals to keep the population down. Who knows? But whatever it is, it must be wrong, surely. Talking of the Holocaust survivor, another place that if you get the chance to visit, especially if you're in Europe, it's not too expensive to get over there, is Auschwitz. Again, it's only by seeing something visually sometimes that that things can really be drummed home, and you can get an idea of how terrible that situation was. One of the things that had the biggest impacts with me, strangely enough, wasn't the gas chambers. It was actually going into the room where they had to go to the toilet. It's like a massive warehouse with just kind of lines and lines of holes where everyone had to be bundled in. You had about 6 seconds apparently to go, and you had to do it in front of everyone else, like squashed together. 6 seconds, then get out, then the next 100 people come in. It was must have been totally degrading, and of course it wasn't the worst thing in there, but it did show me how these people were just regarded as just rats and cattle, basically. Also in the news, the Pope appoints 19 more cardinals. So that's 19 more people maybe that children should beware of. Sorry, that was a little bit, maybe it might be offensive to some people, but it does seem that there's a ridiculous amount of molestation going along in the Catholic Church amongst priests. I'm sure there's some good ones out there somewhere, but I do have a slightly negative view of the Catholic Church, organised religion. I know that there's lots of good Catholic people out there. I'm talking more about the organisation that goes behind it, the Vatican. The last Pope, I just thought actually looked evil. Surely somebody who represented all that is good should actually look as though somebody you would want your children to spend 5 minutes with. The new one seems to be being painted by the media as a nice good guy this time. I don't know. I don't really buy it because he keeps talking about how people should be more generous and more humble and live more humble lives, giving up money and giving money to the poor. And yet, the Vatican is worth millions, perhaps billions of dollars. Um, Surely, if you gave away, if you liquidated half the assets of the Vatican and gave away half of its money, you would seriously be making a big dent in world poverty and in famine and hunger throughout the world. You'd be making a lot of progress there, possibly even resolving it once and for all, because they have a ridiculous amount of money. It's crazy. How can they justify it? I just don't understand how they can justify it. I really don't. Um, the US military spent 737 billion on military defense in 2012. That is actually a lot more than it would cost to resolve world poverty and hunger. So these people know what they're doing. They know it's quite obvious by using simple math to see that they don't care. This is another reason why I don't understand the zombie culture that we live in, because you don't have to be a mathematical genius to do some of these calculations yourself about the Catholic Church, for example, the Vatican. Still, people seem to almost worship the Pope, as far as I'm concerned. I don't understand it. You're worshipping somebody who's saying, give to the poor, give away everything you have, whilst being part of an organization that has all the money they need to solve world problems, or at least to go a long way, and it's not being done. Can't you see that? People are just not interested in just doing some basic research. They're just still watching soap operas, looking at their iPads all the time. I was going to talk a little bit about technology and how it's taken over our lives. From a point of view of someone who it is affecting, I do feel I spend too long on my laptop. I'm not a big user of phones or iPads, so thankfully I haven't been infected with that problem yet, but it is increasingly difficult to walk away from the internet. Even now, as I'm speaking to you, I'm using my laptop. It can be used as a force for good, but I think we need to be encouraged as a society to get away from it, and we need to really address that problem. I would actually welcome going back to a society where we didn't have technology. Apart from maybe communication, it's really nice to be able to contact people in different parts of the world. But it's taken over our lives, it really is. And I think we can all see that, I think it also takes self-control as well, so we can individually control it. Another thing I noticed in the news was UN Security Council passes Syria aid resolution. Automatically, I was drawn to this because I just think sometimes you read something in the news and you think, that doesn't look very interesting or relevant, and then you just know that it probably is. It's probably something much deeper, much more important than you realize. Then I read underneath that a quote by US Secretary John Kerry. He said, "This resolution holds the promise of something real." Now, whenever that man says something, I know he's lying. He's just one of those people there's something about that guy, John Kerry, that it's just a feeling and a knowledge because of what he said about Syria, and he really was really thirsting to go for war in Syria, and I'm sure he was really disappointed when it didn't happen. But now everything that comes out of his mouth just makes me just worried. Like, what is he doing now? So the fact that he says this resolution holds the promise of something real just leaves me scared, because he would not be involved in something good, and if he was, it would be by accident, in my opinion. This year marks World War I anniversary, so I've been seeing a lot of articles talking about war, and that actually concerned me for a while until I realised it was the anniversary, and that was the reason, I hope. There was an article by John Simpson on the BBC about asking whether World War III was possible. Now the question is a great one. The article I didn't think was very good. It didn't really address that question very well at all. He barely even touched on whether it was, and actually gave the immediate answer of no, it's extremely unlikely, which I thought was extremely odd. I don't think it's extremely unlikely at all. A few months ago, America and the UK and some other countries were looking to go to war in Syria, with the Russians saying don't do it, otherwise there's going to be problems, and you have people like him saying it's not likely. We were just lucky last time that didn't happen because of public opinion or other factors. We were just lucky. These guys want to go to war. They want World War III. It's incredibly possible. It really is possible. Let's hope it doesn't happen, but I think these people want it, and if we can, we need to try to stop it. Just a roundup of what we talked about in last episode. We talked about Fukushima. I told you that I used to live there for a number of years. Also about Thailand, where I also used to live for about a year. Protests still going on there. I've still got friends over there as well. I may even return there at some point, because it's a really nice place to live, Thailand. If you like the sea, if you like a low cost of living, some of the best food you're ever going to taste, then it's difficult not to want to stay in Thailand. For someone like me who tries to work from home, using laptops, doing online teaching, that kind of thing, then Thailand's a great place to live. So I may be back there in a few months. Also may go to Ukraine in a few months as well. What I usually do is go to Ukraine and then go on to Thailand, and then on the way back come from Thailand to Ukraine, then back to the UK. So maybe I can do some on the ground reporting soon. We also talked about Sandy Hook. Now Sandy Hook is a place I haven't lived. As far as I can see, the only people that actually live there are actors. They move them in there. It's a big kind of place where you practice your acting skills. Just to remind you, this channel is about looking through the news, having discussions in the comment sections or on the discussion section of YouTube, and trying to work out the news, sending links to each other so we can keep up to date. There's a lot of news out there, and people can see a piece of information, a piece of news that we can all piece together like a jigsaw puzzle and try and work out what's going on. We can speculate. It's good to speculate, because that's all we can do by looking at pieces of the jigsaw, trying to put them together and speculating. We can maybe work out what's happening. I was talking about the zombie-like culture, which someone mentioned in the comments section. It does seem to me that there's a number of us who have woken up and have realized that society around us and the people running it are just a lot more evil than we could ever have imagined. I mean, I've been into mysteries, conspiracies for quite a number of years. During the 80s, I used to read a lot of books and attend meetings by Barry Smith. He talked a lot about Bilderberger groups, the Illuminati. But it's only in the last couple of years, maybe the last 3 years, where I've realized, I've been shocked into waking up even more and realizing These people are the things that you hear about. You think can't possibly be true. They're making me think just for a second. Oh my God, I think these things are true, and realizing that we are in trouble unless we do something about it. I've always had an inquisitive mind, interested in things like the Bermuda Triangle. I'm not so much anymore about those kind of things. I'm still interested, but to me, it's far more important now to find out about the mysteries that are going on around us with our world leaders, because they could affect our futures. I was also interested in things like Chariots of the Gods. I read Eric von Daniken. So that's that TV series, Ancient Aliens. That's a lot to do with his books. I think he appears on that program as well. I was also into things like Noah's Ark. I wanted to find out the truth about our existence. I actually climbed Mount Ararat in Turkey in the 90s. I went on an expedition to try to find Noah's Ark. I know some people might think that's kind of funny, but I mean, there is a lot of evidence that there was a worldwide flood. And basically there is the top of that mountain, Mount Ararat, is permanently covered in ice. So the top has never actually been seen clearly, because it's always been there, this ice. And there is an anomaly near the top. I always find it difficult to say that word, by the way, so I think that came out right. I'm not going to try and say it again. There is a feature near the top which appears to be about the same dimensions as Noah's Ark, and a Japanese team, I believe, or a team from Asia, I think they were Japanese, actually went inside this feature, and it does look like a wooden structure. I would love to go and visit that. You know, I find archaeology and things like that could have a world, an effect on the entire world. I just find things like that just really exciting and interesting. But maybe I'll go back there one day. Let me know what you think about that. What do you think about the idea there was a worldwide flood? I know there's going to be opposing views about that one, and we could discuss for quite a long time about whether animals could be, all the world's species could be put onto one boat. I've got an open mind about it all, to be honest. I still find it interesting, you know, archaeology. You know, ever since watching Raiders of the Lost Ark and that kind of thing, I'm just interested in it. I'm not so much into ghosts and things like that, just because number one, they scare me, and number two, I think I do believe in ghosts, but I don't particularly want to see them, to be honest. So I tend to stay away from the occult and ghosts and things like that. The alien phenomenon, I've always been open-minded about aliens and UFOs. I've often thought that maybe these are military craft, but I'm open-minded as to what they could be. Are they angels, demons? Are they species from another planet? I try to keep an open mind on everything, and I think it's important to do that. Regarding aliens, one thing that made me really sit up and take notice and take this seriously, I mean, there's been a number of things, was the Travis Walton case. I'd be interested to know, especially from people in America, what they think about that case. I found it very convincing. I watched a documentary which I cannot find anymore. It wasn't. It was more of a documentary talking with the guys rather than the films that were made about it. And I can't find the exact one that I saw, which was talking with his friends as well, because they've been quite reluctant to come forward now after a number of years. It's affected their lives, and that's the important issue. The fact that they had to talk about this and has actually cost them their jobs, relationships, and things like that. So you have to sit up and listen to people who you know are telling the truth. These guys, I believe, they believe are telling the truth about what happened that day. So have a look at the Travis Walton case if you haven't looked at it. Try to find original interviews with friends of Travis Walton that were there, and tell me what you think. I find it very convincing. Okay, Yeah, so just remember this is a hobby. I don't profess to be a professional at doing this at all. So, if I'm rambling a little bit sometimes, apologies, but I don't. This isn't a job for me or anything like that. It's just a hobby. I've got to try and make a living somehow, which is another thing that I have to think about at the moment. We all have to think about. I think sometimes that's one excuse we can use to excuse the zombie-like culture that we live in the fact that we've all got to work. We've all got to work hard at the moment to try to pay all the bills. People have got families. I don't have a family to raise, so I'm lucky in that sense. And I think single people are going to have an easier time of looking through the news and exposing the truth than maybe people who've got families to run and don't have a lot of time. So it's our responsibility to look for the truth and to try to make a stand against people who are trying to take away our freedoms. As I explained before, in last episode, I've had all kinds of jobs trying to find some satisfaction myself. It's quite hard these days to try to find something that satisfies you, that gives you a good lifestyle, gives you the money you need to live in society. Whether this has been deliberately manipulated so that, to keep us busy so that we don't have time to think about these important issues, I don't know. But that certainly is difficult. I've been, like I said, a tree surgeon, aerial photographer, recruitment consultant, fireman, salesman, IT consultant, English teacher. Basically, the English teacher role was just something that I found satisfying because it allowed me to travel, which I love to do. And that's why doing something like this, I can do from an angle of trying to talk about places that I've been, like Fukushima and Ukraine, and relate it to what's happening in the news. And maybe if this takes off, I could actually start going to places where things are happening specifically. Also, what I wanted to talk about was the fact that it'd be useful if you could write other subjects and send links to the comments section so that for the next episode we can really discuss all the topics that are important to you, because I don't just want to talk about what interests me. I want to know what interests you and what you found out, what you believe. Also, let me know what you hear on other shows. Like, it's quite difficult to listen to them all. There's all these shows: Alex Jones, Caravan to Midnight, Lip TV, People's Voice, Hagman and Hagman, Coast to Coast. Let me know what you think about these programs. Who's genuine? Who's not? I think they all have their pluses and minuses. Like I said about Alex Jones, I can understand, especially people who watch Alex Jones maybe just a one-off interview or something like that, may not appreciate him or think he's too loud or aggressive. But anyone who listens to him long term, I think, will realise he's really got a good heart, and he does expose the truth. And there's very few people like him that are really addressing the issues and aren't trying to be too politically correct. Because at the moment it is really difficult. Our freedom of speech is being taken away. The other day I was reading in England that there was some councillors. Now, I'm not a big fan of councillors, but one of these councillors is being investigated just for clicking on a like button on Facebook. That's all he did. He just clicked on like about what someone else said on Facebook. He's now being investigated because of that one click, and could potentially lose his job, or even worse, be incriminated because of clicking a like button on Facebook. I think that's terrible. I don't like to support councillors because they're a bit like politicians in that I don't really particularly like these people. But what have we come to when people are making just one comment or clicking on a like button and they can lose their jobs or be incriminated? I noticed that I think the elite have been quite clever with this one in censoring us by basically they've with the Piers Morgan affair. He used to work for News of the World, and there's a lot of problems and investigations being going on there because of phone tapping and things like that. So they've basically engineered the situation. So they've brought in laws now that curtailing reporting, and then quite cleverly, I think, switching it so anyone who writes on media in Facebook or blogs or things like that can be considered to be being a reporter, thereby making us all reporters and journalists and censoring us all at the same time. You've got to admire how they've engineered that situation. That's quite clever. The other day I talked about Kelly Thomas, the guy that was beaten up by the police, and there was also an incident recently where a pensioner who was going slightly too fast. I don't think they were going very fast. They were only going something like 42 kilometers an hour, I think. But they were chased and stopped, and immediately, without even speaking to them, windows were smashed. This was an old age pensioner, you know. This guy, this was videoed actually. You can check it on the video. Someone wanted to know what it's like to live in the UK. That's probably not the most representative thing of living in the UK. I'll tell you, I'll talk about some positive things in a minute, but yeah, this pensioner had all their windows smashed in their car for speeding slightly, and it was put on the internet. I don't know if you've seen it. It went viral, and people were laughing at the overreaction of this cop. Well, who's laughing now? Because basically this cop then sued his employers for making his life hard, saying that people were making fun of him work because of a reaction, and that this was the reaction he was trained to do, which is, I'm sure he's probably telling the truth. I'm sure he's been told that he needs to go along and smash the windows of old people's cars without even asking them to wind their window down. You know, this is the stupid thing about the police now. They're not even asking you to wind the window down. They're just smashing the windows. But anyway, he sued the police, and he got £450,000, something like that. It's pretty close. Check it out. Check out the figure if you want. And then I heard about a guy in the States, I think, who was just sitting on his friend's porch with one of those water hose guns. Just picked up the water hose gun. Now, fair enough. Somebody could mistake that from a distance. Okay, fine. A neighbour saw him sitting on the porch with what he thought was a gun, and basically called the police. Said they should come and investigate. Fine. If you must, come and go and investigate. But what did they do? They turned up and just shot him dead. Not one question. Hi, excuse me, what's that you've got in your hand? That's all it would take. I think we're just in a situation where these police are being trained now in countries just to shoot first, ask questions later. I'm noticing a change. Let me know if you're noticing a change in the police. Even in Thailand, when I arrived I was in Phuket in Thailand again. I know I told you about how I was in the tsunami last week. I told you about that situation, but I returned to Phuket a couple of months ago, and I came out of there. Let me just explain that normally Thai people are really peaceful people. It's quite a peaceful country. Obviously not at the moment. It's getting a little bit it's getting more tense over there. But when I came out of the airport, I just took a step outside the airport. I was waiting for a taxi. I'd actually arranged someone to pick me up this time, so I'll be holding a card with my name. Had a quick look outside, couldn't see anyone holding up my name, so turned around to go back into the airport. Remember, this is an international airport as far as I know. I think it's called Phuket International Airport. Took a step to go back in, and there was a policeman there, sort of a military policeman. And he stood in front of me, goes, "No, no, sorry, out." And he spoke English, not brilliantly well, but well enough so I understood. And I was like, "What?" I literally just landed, and I just stepped out the airport. But I'm looking for someone. Maybe he's meeting me inside the airport. So I took a step. I just thought he's made a mistake, and the guy just aggressively got hold of my shoulder and said, "No, uh, no, you're not coming back in." And I was like, "What? This is an international airport. I just landed. I'm looking for my driver. Just taking a step outside. I want to step back into the same door." And he was like, "You wanna come to the station?" He was threatening to arrest me. And I'm not exaggerating this. I'm not sort of cleaning it up to make it sound like I didn't do anything when I did. Really, I didn't do anything. These are exactly what happened. And I said to him, "But this is an airport. Why am I not allowed to go back inside the airport?" And he goes, "Do you really want to come down the station?" And he was threatening me, and I was quite angry. I just arrived. I just decided in those situations, I just decide you've got to stop. You've got to take a breath, realize the kind of world we live in, and then just let it go. Otherwise, things can get out of hand. In these situations now, you can wind up dead in a lot of countries. And we've seen that from situations like Kelly Thomas, who was beaten to death ruthlessly by the police. And then what's even worse is they don't get prosecuted. There's no justice. Like the guy who was shot with the water gun. I mean, if that was one of your friends or your family, what would you do? I saw the family's reaction to that. They were obviously really upset and sad. I would just be absolutely fuming. I don't know how I could control myself in that situation. If the police came and shot somebody I loved because they were holding a water hose, I can't even think about it, to be honest. One other thing I wanted to ask you what you think about was President Obama. Now, when he first ran as president, I really thought, wow, this guy, he's talking about truth you can believe in, was it? Change you can believe in, that's right. Change you can believe in. And he was quite convincing. He's a very good liar, Obama, I've discovered. He was quite convincing. I thought, wow, someone change you can believe in. That's what everybody wants. Everybody wants change. Everyone's fed up with the same thing happening over and over again. And basically, he's been shown to be a really good manipulator and liar in the period since then. He's quite blatantly lied about various things, including Obamacare and things like that. What about his birth certificate? Do you think that's real? I mean, I think I heard on Coast to Coast or another program that someone was admitted that they'd forged that. I mean, does it matter? What do you think? I think the thing that does matter is the lies. I also remember hearing that nobody from his school days, or hardly anyone, seems to come forward from his school days. I think he was supposed to be a teacher at a university at some point, and not one student has come forward saying they were taught by him, which is, surely that's incredibly suspicious. If you were taught by the president-to-be of a country as big as the USA, you definitely come forward and say, yeah, I was there. You could sell your story maybe. Doesn't seem to be many people coming forward. I think it's highly suspicious. Let me know what you think about that. Just to talk a little bit about the UK. Okay, so right at the moment, I'm in a place that's really, really beautiful. There are some nice parts of the UK. I'm in a place that was actually used in a movie, famous movie, called The Holiday with Cameron Diaz. If you've seen that, there's some scenes in that movie that were filmed near where I'm staying at the moment, but there's some beautiful countryside with old pubs, and it's quite small. Anyone coming from the States visiting the UK will see how our roads are much, much smaller, and the shops and pubs and things are quite small, but it's it can be quite a nice place to live. Generally, most people can be friendly out in the countryside, especially when you get into the bigger cities. People are a bit more tense, and it's a lot harder to make friends in London, for example. Now, the things that do seem to be changing regarding the things that we're interested in are one thing that shocked me is that I've always respected the police over here, and I do want to say that if you compare the police here to say the police in Ukraine, we are so lucky, because some of the police here would lay down their lives to save you if you were in trouble. So I'm not overlooking that aspect of things, but what does scare me is and shock me was when things like there was a raid in the centre of London with SWAT teams going in and arresting G8 protesters, people protesting against the G8 conference. And these people were arrested before they had done anything. They were just people who were planning on doing a protest which is supposed to be legal in the UK. This is what I'm talking about when I say the rights are being taken away, because it's supposed to be legal to protest against something here, but these protesters were arrested before the day before they were due to protest against the G8. I think there was about 50 of them arrested. One guy, one of the anti-government demonstrators, when the police came for him, he ran to the roof and he was trying to jump off to kill himself, because he said he didn't want to live in a society that had a police state. And he's right, unfortunately. I don't know if he's right to kill himself, because obviously with someone like him who's trying to protest against it, you've got to stay strong and carry on protesting. You're no good to anyone if you're dead. But if you do get the chance, then do come and visit England too. There's a lot to offer here. London's a great city to go out in. There's lots to do. Bring plenty of money though, because it's becoming extremely expensive. It's really becoming quite difficult to live in London unless you're really well paid nowadays. So if you're coming on a trip over here, make sure you've got lots of money to pay for accommodation, food. Even going to the cinema could cost you like 10, 15, 20 pounds just for one person. If you buy a Coke or something, that's about $30, $35. It's getting a bit crazy over here, the cost of living. And we don't have the best weather, unfortunately. We're suffering a lot of floods at the moment. People are losing their homes due to floods. And I think in some other countries we've been having some disturbing weather recently. Now, is that to do with HARP, or is that to do with natural phenomenon? Do you believe in climate change? I'm slightly skeptical, to be honest, about climate change. I know that's not going to be popular with everyone, but one of the reasons I don't believe it was because Al Gore said it's true, and I don't believe anything the government tells me now, to be honest. I've lost a lot of faith in them, and if Al Gore says climate change is true, then I'm inclined to think it isn't. So I'm sorry about that. That's just where I'm coming from. I just think you have to be good. You have to look after the environment around you, regardless of whether this is true climate change. I'm not going to be polluting the atmosphere if I can help it. I want a clean environment around me, but I don't want to be listening to people like Al Gore. So I'm just slightly skeptical about it. The zombie culture, let me just talk about that again. Basically, I know a friend of mine who actually also helped me in improving my musical tastes, who I mentioned last episode, Kieran. The music that you sometimes hear on this broadcast is Futile Devices by Sufjan Stevens. So if you want to check out some of his music, you can find him online. But he was saying to me about Cosmo, that every girl he's ever met or knows, or he has this theory that every girl has a copy of Cosmo magazine, and its women's magazines have polluted the minds of the female population. I think magazines in general are a lot of their subjects are quite dumb. I mean, they don't really tackle the issues that could affect our lives. I think it's good to have entertainment, and I think the trouble with following conspiracies and looking for the real truth behind the news, the dark truth, is you can become almost quite despairing and forget that you have to take a light-hearted look at the world at the end of the day as well. It is a bit like a game. Life is a game, but it doesn't really help to get for people to understand what's going on when we have so many magazines, girly magazines, magazines about men's health that are just full of adverts. Most magazines are just full of adverts these days, glossy adverts with articles that are really surface level, unimportant stuff. Health is important, but they don't really tackle the real issues. They just tackle they tap into people's insecurities more than anything, and women's magazines definitely do that. Newspapers. The only reason I read newspapers nowadays are just because to give my eyes a break from looking at the news on the internet. To be honest, I used to love going to cafes, sitting down with a newspaper, but now in the UK, a lot of newspapers. Say there's 5 different main types of newspapers. You've got like the Mirror, the Guardian, the Mail, the Express, Metro, which is a free newspaper on the underground system. They've all pretty much got the same stories, just reworded, and they're all very non-critical of the information they're giving out. Not very investigative anymore. So I think a lot of society just reads them. It takes it almost as gospel truth, because they've always trusted in the media and governments, but they don't realise that things have changed. You can't trust these people anymore. And I think occasionally newspapers are touching on important issues. Like yesterday, the headline in the Daily Mail, I think I've got it here actually. The headline was, "But they still won't say sorry." Actually, that's today's paper, and it's about Harriet Harman and some top government ministers who were linked to paedophilia organisations in the past, and they're trying to wriggle out of this one. But this paedophilia situation is going to really be exposed, and people are going to go down. They already have, but I think a lot more people are going to go down. As I mentioned before, check out Pie and Mash Films. Bill Maloney, who's trying to expose some of the disgusting things that are going on behind the scenes. And remember, we're not just talking molestation, we're talking murder as well, involving members of the elite, of perhaps royalty. Go and check out his site and find out more about that. So just again to talk about the UK, as someone wanted me to do. It's very multicultural in London. I spend a lot of time in London. I really should go and see more of the rest of England, because we do have some beautiful places in England, like Cornwall. Cornwall has some really quite nice beaches. This country isn't known for its nice beaches. We have very pebbly, stony shorelines, but in Cornwall they have sand. They have Cornish pasties, which is a nice delicacy, and there's some other places in the UK that are worth visiting, like the Cotswolds. You can have a real stereotypical British tea with scones and that kind of thing in country pubs. There's definitely some nice things about the UK, and of course about all our societies. It's just a shame it's ruined by the people that are running it. You probably saw about the London riots. Now, I don't think those London riots were particularly anti-government or revolutionary. That was more just like there was too many thugs involved in that situation. Too many people who were just looting and smashing windows because they like doing that kind of thing. And that's a shame, because I think that's the problem with any aspirations we've got of revolution. We're going to have to deal with people like that as well. People that don't actually do feel unhappy with their situation, but it's not because they know what's going on behind the scenes. It's because they just want to smash a few things up and steal things for their own selfish needs. Hello there. Welcome back. I just had a quick break there. Welcome back to part 2 of Truth Sentinel with Scott. I was talking a bit about life in London, maybe some more of the negative stuff, but like I said, living in London, it's very expensive, but there is lots to do as a visitor. I think London's the kind of city you want to visit if you want to go out partying things. Bring plenty of money and you'll be okay. If you want to come and visit England and go and see the countryside, it's a really nice place to go for walks and go cycling maybe, although we do have some very unpredictable weather over here in the UK. Personally, I'm probably not the best person to talk about the benefits of the UK, as I like to travel, so I spend most of my time trying to get out of here than I do staying here. Maybe I don't appreciate it as much as I should do. I mean, I'm going to try and have a look around the UK a bit more and explore other parts of the UK. I've got some fond memories of Cornwall and the Isle of Wight, although I think David Icke talks about the Isle of Wight and says there's lots of ritual sacrifices that go on there. That's the problem, I think. When you start to realise what's going on in places, it can sort of taint it slightly for yourself. Okay, just wanted to mention I am covering a lot of topics today, and I'm sorry if it seems like it's all a bit surface level. At the moment, these are kind of introductory recordings, and in the future I hope to do more specific ones where I go a lot more in depth about some of these topics, but we're just kind of skirting over issues and subjects at the moment as a bit more of an introduction to them. So I wanted to mention and ask you what you thought about music. The amount of deaths that go in the music industry and the film industry. Do you think it's natural? Because to me it seems as though there's an incredible amount of people that seem to die from overdoses and things like that. Now, they could be overdoses, but there are some that say that these are ritual sacrifices. People like Whitney Houston. When you've got at the same time people like Lady Gaga, Keisha, Katy Perry, increasingly seeming to be involved in ritual offerings and sacrifice in their performances. And then people die either at the same time or the next day, you've got to start to become suspicious. And then you start to wonder about people in the past who've died, sorry. I almost said have been killed, like it's a fact, but people who've died in the past, all these famous people in the past, like Jim Morrison from The Doors, people like that. Were they killed or did they die? It's in the UK we had people musicians being killed, like Amy Winehouse possibly being killed. I've heard stories, anyway. Recently, Philip Seymour Hoffman, at the age of 46, died from an overdose. There always seems to be, from an overdose, like Marilyn Monroe as well, it always seems to be people like, wouldn't it be quite easy to kill these people if you knew they had some kind of addiction, just to kill them and then just blame it on that addiction? What do you think about that? Do you think these are natural deaths, natural in the way that they're self-inflicted with addictions, or is there something darker happening behind the scenes? And what do you think of these strange rituals that a lot of singers and performers are involved in now, like Katy Perry and her recent performance at that awards ceremony? What did you think of that? The Egyptian kind of ceremonial stuff. Remember, this channel is, as well as just talking about issues, it's basically trying to stimulate discussion as well on the comments board. So that's why I'm asking questions sometimes, just to see, I want to know, I'd be interested to know what you think, and if we could get people together and start sharing maybe some inside information, but also just ideas and speculation, because we have to do that these days. We can't rely on the news anymore. I also wanted to ask you, what do you think of people who seem to kill serial killers. What do you think of serial killers? What motivates them? I mean, they all talk. Most serial killers talk about voices in their heads telling them to do things. And I've always thought it strange that no one's investigating or just ignoring those comments. Like voices in their head, they're obviously mad, you know. Or, but could it be that these are real voices in their heads? I actually believe these people. I think they're hearing voices in their heads. I don't know if that's madness or whether they're actually being controlled by someone, either through mind control. Now this is where I'm talking about the zombie-like culture, or maybe the stupid culture of society, where they go mind control is stupid, and then they just turn away and think it couldn't happen. When all they have to do is do a bit of research and realize the CIA have admitted they did things like this, mind control experiments, dragging people off the streets. They're currently being sued by some of these people. So it's not a laughable matter. It's not something that should be treated as a joke. This is what I don't understand about some of society around us that don't believe in any of these things. They can just check it out. It's there. You know, we've got the internet now. You can check out whether these things happened. Have governments lied to you in the past? Have governments set up false flag events? Have governments dragged people off the streets and tried to erase their memories? Have governments tried to spray gases over the cities to see what kind of reaction they would have? Of course they have. So this is the zombie-like culture. Just don't seem to be interested in checking that out. They'd rather just laugh at these situations. I also wanted to, I mean, I'm sure this debate's been going along a lot in the USA already, so it might be an issue that's kind of been done to death. But gun control, I used to think that in the USA it was an obvious choice. If you don't have guns, then you're going to have less crime and you're not going to have so many shootings. And I think in an ideal world, we don't need guns. In an ideal world, you know, where everyone's cares about everyone and the police are good and the governments are good. But I must say my opinion has changed. I'm not saying that I would necessarily think it's a good idea to arm the population of the UK, because guns over here are illegal at the moment. But I can definitely see why anyone who's got a gun in the USA should definitely keep hold of it at the moment, because you don't need to protect yourself so much against other people. You need to make sure you've got a gun to protect yourself against the government, and that's the truth. This is not a time to be getting rid of guns in the USA. This is a time to hold on to them until you live in a society where you can trust people around you. Then you don't want to be giving up those guns at the moment. That's all I'm saying about that. Censorship, I think, is becoming ridiculous, as I mentioned about Facebook. You're not being able to make comments. We're all reporters now, apparently. We can't, you know. At the moment, they're bringing in laws to say basically bloggers, people on Facebook, emails, they can all be, you know, they can all be used as evidence, and you know, you could be incriminated for comments or liking things or things like that. How long is it going to be before we're all reporters if we speak on the streets? You know, if you have things like Google Glasses, for example, and they start, I don't know if, I haven't got any of those Google Glasses or seen them operating, but do they pick up sound as well? And if they don't, well, it's only going to be a matter of time before they do. So if having some kind of internet interface on your face in the form of glasses with sound becomes common practice, which is probably going to happen, isn't it, within the next sort of 20 years. How long is it going to be before everyone's considered a reporter or to be bound by censorship laws when you're wearing those glasses and it picks up any comment you make? So you could start to have a debate with your friend, and then you get arrested because of something you said to your friend, because Oh, that thing gets posted automatically onto a page. Your speech has been detected. You're now under arrest. And these aren't nightmare scenarios anymore. These are happening. And the zombie-like culture around us are just don't seem to care anymore. I did speak to someone at work, and I said to them, what do you think about Edward Snowden and the fact he's exposing all this information about how our emails are being read, our phone calls are being listened to. And it was the typical response, really, like if you've got nothing to hide, then you don't need to worry about it. I think the more and more people that get arrested for ridiculous things, the more people are going to realize these are things to worry about. Today I saw an article with a jogger that was arrested. I can't remember what she's said to be. Oh, that's it, jaywalking. I think it's jaywalking in the USA, which I always found a bit of a strange law. USA being the land of the free, and you can't even cross the road where you want to. You can't even look left and right and decide whether it's safe to cross. You can't make that decision. If you cross somewhere, that's called jaywalking. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong about that, but there's a picture, you can check it on the internet, of a jogger looking startled and incredulous that she's just been arrested. She's wearing her jogging shorts and t-shirt because she's just been arrested for jaywalking. Cuffed, and there was another article I saw of firemen and firemen and paramedics being arrested during an operation, during a situation, and they're being arrested. It just seems nuts. I mean, what is happening? What goes through the minds of these people? I don't understand it. There was a paramedic in an ambulance got arrested for parking somewhere, maybe. I don't know what the crime was. But there was someone having a heart attack in the back of the ambulance, and the police were arresting him. And these police need to be arrested themselves. This is the thing, like, these kind of situations, fine, they're going to happen. You're going to have nutballs, but when they do happen, arrest these people, fire them from their jobs, but they don't. They get people standing up for them, and they continue in their jobs. I mean, it's just crazy, in my opinion. What do you think about that? And also, where's the line between freedom of speech? I think there's a common sense line, for example. Like, I think you should be able to say pretty much anything you want on Facebook or on any kind of internet interface. But when you start, for example, you get those people, someone's just died, their family set up a web page for people to leave, pay their respects. And then you get people going on, leaving messages, I'm glad she's dead, and then I don't want to repeat some of the things that they would say, but it gets much, much worse than that. It's difficult for me to say that I don't want those people arrested, because I find those people disgusting, almost as disgusting as any kind of politician or anyone like that. If you're going to be saying things like that, you need to be educated that that's not the right thing to say. And we don't want you in our society until you've been re-educated. And I think education is the key to a lot of things, to educate someone that it's the wrong thing to do. I mean, also in the UK, recently the politicians have decided that it's no longer going to be acceptable to smoke in a car, to have a cigarette in a car if you've got children in the car. Now, I completely understand the logic behind that, because you don't really want. I think it sets a real bad example if you're smoking in front of children anyway, regardless of whether you smoke or not. I've smoked in the past. I sometimes still do smoke cigars and things like that. But I don't think the government should be getting involved in ordering people to live the way they should. What governments could get involved with is educating people and creating a society where people help each other around them, and people learn by being a good example. For example, I'll give you an example of people being a bad example, and hypocrisy is when people like members of the royal family say that they're against hunting elephants for ivory, and then you see photos of them with animals that they've just killed on safaris and stuff like that. It's just hypocrisy, you know. And like I said, like I've said before to on my Facebook page, sometimes I've mentioned that basically it's not the people smoking in cars that are harming children. It's the governments that are doing nothing to stop the millions and millions of children that are being molested and killed. And I'm talking about killed through famine, poverty, war around the world. It's not, they're trying to focus the attention on citizens rather than themselves. You know, they're wasting so much money. In the UK here also, there's been lots and lots of scandals about politicians using public funds, wasting public funds. You know, Yanukovych, he's just one person. You know, he's probably a bad example of some. You know, when someone's wasting government funds, but it happens in our countries too. You know, we've had famous cases of politicians over here spending lots of money on cleaning the moat around their house, or you know, wasting money on recently the politicians in the Houses of Parliament in the UK here spent £250,000. That just quickly, that's about what, $380,000, maybe $400,000 on paintings of themselves to put up in the Houses of Parliament. I mean, it's just disgusting. You know, they don't realise how important it is to spend every penny on sorting out the world problems, which I think could have been sorted out 300 times over if we had the right people in power. Talking of having the right people in power, someone else mentioned something about consciousness, world consciousness. I don't know much about that, but I do know that I agree with the principles of what you were talking about, that basically we need to start addressing the issues around us, and like you said, realize that we all have so much in common, rather than looking at the differences between cultures and religions. You know, religions like the Muslim religion, which is coming under a lot of attack at the moment. Rather than looking at the differences, look at the similarities and try to work out how we can all get along and create a better society, rather than just focusing entirely on all the problems with us all living together. I think we should relax visa restrictions, let people meet, encourage people to get along, encourage children from other countries to meet each other, and focus on things like that. Governments could set up more schemes like that, make the world a better place. You know, people think it's philosophical nonsense. It's because none of the people in government for the last 50 years have been trying to do anything like that, and because they think it's a joke to have peace in the world. It's not a joke when you're actually responsible for running the world. You have a chance to change it, but they're not. Someone else mentioned Iceland. There hasn't been a lot of talk about what happened in Iceland, but basically there was a resignation of the entire government in Iceland, a nationalisation of the bank, and the people demanded a referendum so they could decide whether they should have to pay back debts to other countries which were crippling their economy. And they decided 95% no, they don't want to pay them back. And that's also writing off debts to third world nations. That's another matter. That should be done instantly. It shouldn't even be a question. But basically, in Iceland, they made sure that they took over the government there, made them do what they wanted to do, incarcerated people who'd committed injustices, rewrote the constitution, and completely changed the situation over there peacefully. There was very little violence. I think actually one policeman got shot some time ago in Iceland, and no, one citizen got shot, and the police reservedly apologized. Now that's the kind of society we need to live in. I don't know, I've never actually been to Iceland. Just the name just makes me feel cold, but I do know you can see some nice auroras over there, so I would like to go there at some point. And Björk, that singer, very good singer, comes from Iceland, I believe so. Or was it Finland? I'm sure someone will correct me on some of the things I'm talking about, but Anyway, so peaceful revolution is possible. I think when enough people rise up against a government, uh, basically we can change society. We can force them out. Now, what happened in Ukraine involved 100 people dying. That's really unfortunate. And those were brave people. It's a shame that it has to come to violence for people to take notice. I think some governments will only take notice when they fear for their own lives. But, I think numbers have a massive, massive visual power. If there was millions of people marching onto a government, telling them it's time to go, I heard that someone else mentioned in the comment section that there's a plan to do that in the USA. That would just be brilliant. That would be so brilliant if you could do that. If you could get enough people on the streets to wake up this zombie culture, to make them realize things are much, much worse than they realize, and to march on governments, millions and millions of people, and saying we're not taking this anymore. Not only are you going, but we're going to replace the entire system. We're not going to have these stupid elections of people like you who want to be in power. We're going to elect people into power who don't want to be there, but who are good people and who will make the right decisions, who will change the world. So anyway, I'm going to thank you for listening to episode 2. Please continue to listen. Again, this is just a hobby at the moment. Depending on how popular it gets, then these will continue. So I'll just keep an eye on how many people are listening. And sometimes when I see the news, I can't help but say something anyway. If you get the chance, pass these recordings on to friends. Try to spread the word. And it's not really my word, it's your word. If you agree with any of the things I'm saying, then it's your word that you'll be spreading, not mine. I'm not making any money out of this, by the way, just to let you know. I'm not making a cent. In fact, whilst I'm talking to you now, I'm supposed to be working, so I better go and do some work. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.